so I've been replaying through Poppy Playtime looking for secrets and clues for upcoming videos. But whenever I put this amount of time into a particular game, I often find things that I didn't see on my first and second playthroughs. So I thought, why not put those things into a list in case you might have missed them. But before we get into the video, Poppy Playtime has been very popular, which has brought quite a lot of new people to the channel, so welcome. If this is your first time here, I make a lot of horror gaming content, horror explained videos and lore discussions as well, with the occasional gameplay and streams too. This would usually be the time where I'd ask you to subscribe, but I'm not going to do that. Today, I'm going to offer you a challenge instead. I'm going to present you with 10 things that you might have missed in Poppy Playtime. If I found something that you've missed, hit subscribe. And if you enjoy the video, hit the notification bell as well. It's totally up to you if you want to do the challenge, but I thought it would be more fun than me just saying, hey, subscribe to the channel, blah blah blah. I thought this would be more fun. So with that out of the way, let's get into the video. Number 10. HUGGY moves. I only noticed this one after a couple of times playing through the game, but one thing that's actually quite obvious once you start looking at it is that HUGGY actually moves before we actually see him move. If you've watched the trailers or played the game, it's obvious that HUGGY comes to life. He is the main antagonist in Chapter 1 of Poppy Playtime. But when we first see him, he appears to be frozen on the spot, acting like a toy, or well, in his case a statue of a toy. But what's really interesting about HUGGY is that you can actually see him moving the entire time. Taking a closer look at HUGGY, you can see that the fur on his body is moving. Now you might just think that this is the wind, but nothing else in this room, including these things hanging from the ceiling, are moving. There doesn't seem to be a strong breeze in here at all. But if you look even closer, it looks more like HUGGY is breathing. He gently sways side to side, and also his hair moves more around his chest than his legs, which to me implies that this is more of him breathing than just wind around the room. It was a subtle foreshadow, even though we all knew he was going to come to life, as it would have been obvious even without the trailer. It's still a really cool piece of information that the developers went to this extent to show how he was alive all along. HUGGY being alive ties very nicely into number 9. Number 9. HUGGY's eyes. This is one that I actually noticed fairly quickly, but some people don't seem to have seen it. If you take a closer look at HUGGY both in this image and in person, you can see that there are eyes within his eyes. He has his doll eyes or his toy eyes, but then he has far more realistic looking, or should I say living looking eyes deeper inside. Obviously this is more clues that HUGGY's going to come to life, but it also gives us more hints as to how he became alive in the first place. This isn't merely just some animatronic, HUGGY is actually alive, and while we don't know how this fully works yet, it's clear that there is something human or something more living within him. No wonder he's so hungry. Number 8. The Cursed HUGGY. Littered around the main Huggy Wuggy in this area are a number of HUGGY dolls, most of which are still intact. But if you take a closer look at one of them, one just seems to stand out. This one is slumped down in its box, and if you kick the box around you can actually get it to come out. But once you take a closer look, this one's just a little bit off. The smile definitely looks wrong to me, it looks a little bit sinister. And it's slumped down, more so than I feel a toy would do in its box. We know that the large Huggy Wuggy comes to life, but up until this point, I hadn't considered that maybe some of the smaller ones do too. Maybe we'll see an army of these terrifying critters in a future chapter. I can't wait. Number 7. HUGGY in the vents. This one's actually really obvious, and I'm so surprised that I didn't see it on my first couple of playthroughs, but it wasn't until my third playthrough that I actually saw this one. In the factory area, once you've acquired all the batteries and you head back upstairs, you can very briefly see HUGGY sticking out of this vent. He just sits there staring at you with this creepy look on his face. He only does this for a moment until the door slams and we can't see him anymore. It's really interesting that I didn't see this. I didn't see this until my third playthrough, even though he's right there. I guess I must have been distracted. I know that other people have claimed to see HUGGY in other places as well, places that I missed. Very interesting that a lot of these HUGGY jump scares, if you will, seem to be very difficult to find. It's almost like HUGGY is watching you, but not trying to scare you at this point. If you know of any other places where HUGGY shows up, let me know down in the comments. Number 6. The protagonist has no reflection. This is one that actually ties into my latest theory on the game. In that theory, I talk about how it's possible that you, the player, are a doll. And if you want to see that theory, I will leave a link down in the description and in the pinned comment below if you want to go and check that one out after this video. But something else that I didn't notice until after I'd made that theory is that the protagonist has no reflection. I've tested this in several different areas and on several different surfaces. You can never see the reflection of the protagonist, which is very interesting to me. As I've said before, it's possible that the developers just didn't put it in. Maybe they haven't had the time, or maybe they just didn't think it was necessary. But you can actually see a faint reflection of the grab pack. And if you look in this reflection, you can see the vague outline of the protagonist. So it's not like the developers just didn't want to do it. It seems more likely that the developers are hiding your reflection for some reason. Either they don't want you to know who you are yet, or they don't want you to know what you look like. Either way, it's very interesting considering just how reflective this surface is that we actually can't see anything about us at all. We can't even see a vague body shape, it's just a giant black box. Number 5. Misspellings in the letter. So right in the beginning of the game, you get a letter and a VHS tape, inviting you back to the factory, explaining that the staff members are still there. We don't know who sent this, but one really interesting detail that I picked up on was that it's both misspelled and grammatically incorrect. Disappeared is misspelt, which is very interesting because we can see disappeared be spelt correctly in a different part of the game. So it's not like the developers don't know how to spell. This was done intentionally. And also if you look at we're, the apostrophe is in the wrong place too. It seems like whoever wrote the letter is either very young or has something else going on. Perhaps it's a clue to who wrote it. Perhaps the person who wrote it has the mind of a child, or possibly the body of one. Number 4. Poppy symbolism. So it seems like almost nobody's talking about Poppy as in the flower and the symbolism which comes along with it. We know that Poppy the doll is a very important character in the series. The game is named Poppy Playtime after all. But one thing no one seems to have considered is that poppies have a very deep symbolic meaning. In fact, they have several deep symbolic meanings. This is something that I'll probably explore more deeply in a future video, but the most obvious symbolism of poppies is that of remembrance. Poppies, after all, are the flower which we wear in England and other places to remember those who died during World War II. And this is because historically, poppies have been one of the few flowers that can grow among battlefields. But poppies also have another symbolism. They've been used since the ancient Egyptian times to represent sleep. This is possibly due to how poppy seeds actually have an opiate effect, and have been used to create opiates since very early on in human history. I think it's very interesting then that when we find Poppy, she herself is in a deep sleep. Perhaps this symbolism has more relevance than we first knew. Number 3. The hanged staff. I think most people agree with the general theory that the staff members have been turned into toys. We know that these toys are covered in blood, and even Huggy Wuggy, when he falls, sprays blood as he hits the metal on the way down. If that is the case, there are a number of staff members that have been hanged outside Poppy's area. We know that somebody was still around for a while, and might still be, but somebody was still around for a while to write all these warnings on the vents and on the walls here. Somebody clearly doesn't want us to see Poppy for some reason. But if these are staff, why have they been hanged outside? Is it a warning, some cruel display? And furthermore, who is the warning for? Was the warning maybe not for us then? Was it for the rest of the staff and this was, again, a warning for them? Don't come here or you'll end up just like this. I'm not too sure, but either way, when we figure out exactly what happened to the staff, I bet this scene will get much more dark. Number 2. The double negative. In the area where we restore power to the facility, we can see this poster. It's a very simple poster, a list of do's and don'ts. But something that really struck out to me even on my first playthrough is that there is a double negative in the first list. The poster reads, "Do be kind to others, do show up on time, do not hide behind doors to scare Lathe Pierre." The reason why I think this is strange is right below that there is then a list of don'ts. Don't stay past 8 PM, don't misuse company time, and so on. Why would you have a do not when you then have a list of don'ts? Well, maybe this is a tongue-in-cheek reference. Maybe this point on the list is actually supposed to encourage people to scare Lathe Pierre. After all, it seems like Lathe Pierre is, well, kind of paranoid. If you listen to the first tape, he's the one that talks about the security in the facility, and he seems almost threatened by the idea of somebody getting into the facility, which is probably because they were doing experiments that we've talked about in previous videos. So then, if Lathe Pierre is very paranoid, it seems like somebody in the facility knew this and wanted to play pranks on him and wanted to encourage other people to do so. Maybe this rivalry or feud actually plays into what happened in this factory. Maybe Lathe Pierre was fed up of what went on, and this could actually tie into future events. Either that, or somebody's just not very good at making lists. Number 1. Poppy's voice actress. One thing that a couple of people have talked about in the comments, but not that many, is that the voice actress for Poppy is the same voice actress as Stella Graber. Stella is the person in the VHS tape that talks about wishing she could be a child or wishing she could be younger forever. She's the one that talks about trees and how trees are older than humans and so on. So it's very interesting then that she shares the same voice actress with Poppy. Perhaps this was to keep costs down, perhaps they just really liked this actress's voice. But what if it's a subtle hint? As we've said before, it seems like staff members are being transformed into dolls and toys. So what if Stella Graber was the one who was transformed into Poppy? After all, she did say she wanted to be young forever. Be careful what you wish for, folks. So there we have it, those are 10 things you might have missed in Poppy Playtime. And don't forget, if you haven't already, click subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss my future uploads. I upload a lot of videos all about horror games, theories, lore and so on, so if you like that kind of thing, you might like my channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.